Welcome back to Let's Play Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. Last time we went through Norfair and grabbed a few upgrades, and today we're heading back to Brinstar through a big backtrack so we can grab a few expansions and also learn of the way of wall jumping. Because as you guys know, wall jumping, especially in Super Metroid, is a big part of sequence breaking in this game. And as I had mentioned beforehand in the last video, it may or may not have been intentional in some places, and that's because the game actually kind of shows you indirectly how to use it. And we're going to be finding that out here in a bit from a sample of gameplay from some creatures that may or may not play a big part in the role of the Metroid world building itself. So these are part of a creatures called the Edecuns and the Koras, and they're brought mention of in Fusion, just so you guys know. And in this game, basically the role they serve is, according to the narrative of Fusion, they basically show Samus that she has access to abilities she didn't know she had beforehand, which, when I think about it in hindsight, kind of breaks the immersion a little bit for me, because like in Zero Mission, you know, a remake of Metroid 1, you had access to wall jumping and shine sparking. And technically she wouldn't figure that out until this game. So it's um like, what are they gonna do whenever they inevitably remake Super Metroid one of these days? If they do, I doubt it'll ever happen, but like, it's like, what are they gonna have to do to explain, like, the wall jumping and Metroid Samus Returns in Zero Mission, you know? That just kind of takes you out of it a little bit when you think about it. Because now it's like, oh, wait a second, I knew I had this ability all along, and now I suddenly forgot it again. Hey, Edecuns, the chorus, show me what I'm trying to think of again. Alright, and the next thing I'm going to be showing off here that, you know, I could totally skip, but you know what, I might as well leave in the immersion for the player here, is this pit. Commonly speaking, a lot of people have a tendency to run into this pit and fall into what a lot of like new players get stuck in until they indirectly figure out from the game telling them indirectly. And this is where you learn shine sparking. Basically, to the left here, you have a room that fills your energy up. You want to make sure you do that before initiating a shine spark. So upon watching this little creature, you kind of gain the instinct of go, oh hey, I should probably start a speed booster. You jump up from a crouching position, and you have yourself a shine spark. Shine sparks are a little bit different in this game, in the sense that they actually use up energy upon using one, so you don't want to get too trigger happy with these on your first playthrough. But I'm pretty sure speedrunners wouldn't give a shit and would find ways to break that philosophy in two anyway, so I'm not even gonna try the attempt to like give my own suggestions there on out. But yeah, the real reason I headed to that pit with the I think it was the Edecuns, the ones that showed us the wall jumping, was simply just to grab a few expansions, and that's really about it. Much like Metroid 1 and 2 before it, Super Metroid isn't affected in the ending by the amount of items you get towards the end. But, on the other hand, it does actually show an item counter for how many expansions you get by the end game. So, in a way, you can definitely tell they have the idea to make something in mind for that in the future. Just not at the moment, I guess. And there's a few other expansions to get to. It's just we're not going to really have access to any of them until like towards the end game. So when I make my last backtrack back to Cortaria upon beating both of the 4 main bosses, I'll be sure to grab those expansions. There are a few methods in which I can totally use like the wall jump to like break some of these sequences in two, but one of them, to my knowledge, most definitely is in need of the gravity suit, which we get later on. And it's like, yeah, I'd much rather just wait until then. And yeah, we pretty much have a broken beam combination right from the get-go. Because, like, I'm pretty sure we weren't supposed to have this until much later. Like, I'm not sure when they intended for us to get the Spazer beam, since it seems like more of a hidden ordeal than anything. And then the wave beam, you're not supposed to get until the grapple beam, I guess. I don't really know. But like, whew, just the setup we have right now is going to be more than enough for what we need in the ongoing section. So we're not going to really have much trouble here. So, what we're going to be doing now is heading back to North here. I know. I know people hate backtracking in general, but that's just the way Metroid is in most aspects. It just depends on how the game handles backtracking, and to be honest, this is about the worst of it, really. After this point in the game, it's not too bad, I would say. It's mostly just getting the power bombs and making your roundabout back to this point where the backtracking can seem a little bit off-putting to some people. You know, it's funny because, like, in part 2, I was mentioning how much I loved the Red Soil Brinstar theme, and this was before I played Samus Returns, mind you. I played Samus Returns right before the release of part 3, and I bring mention to this because, oh my god, what is with freaking Nintendo's obsession with reusing the Red Soil theme lately? Like, what the heck? I thought I was unique in this argument and liking this song so much, but apparently not. Apparently not, because they decided to make yet another remake of the theme for Samus Returns, and it's a fantastic piece of music, as always. I'd say I'd like the Prime 2 remix a little bit more, though. It does have a bit less instrumentation to it, I guess, but it gives off a much different emotion for me. A sense of mystery and discovery, as opposed to eliciting the same feelings I get from this song. Does that make any sense? I'm not very good at analyzing music. I can analyze pieces of gameplay footage and like level design and stuff, but I'm not very good at taking apart music. I just go by off of like music I like and don't care for, so whatever tickles the fancy, I guess. I listen to video game music way more than I should. And I am also heading off in the wrong direction. Guys, this is why I don't speedrun this game, because I get scatterbrained off too often. Alright, so head in this direction right here. And I like how this is like one of the only instances in the whole game where the game like just literally flat out tells you, hey, you need power bombs. Because for most cases throughout the game, like, you don't really know what block is acceptable to which weapon until like you've already like bombed it or just used the x-ray scope to like kind of, well, scope it out, no pun intended. But no, the game just flat out fucking tells you. I guess they knew like the backtrack for the power bombs would be kind of significant as a whole to the pacing of the game. So maybe they wanted to like kind of make it obvious that you had to go back a good ways before getting it. I'm not really sure. Maybe the developers had something else in mind. Also, I screwed that up. I also screwed that up. I'm screwing everything up. Oh my god, what the heck? Okay, so basically, what's kind of annoying about getting expansions and walls like that is that you can't be aiming downwards upon getting them. What you have to do is that you have to make sure Samus's sprite is facing in the direction of the expansion you're getting. So, like, I had to shoot to the left to make sure my arm cannon was touching the expansion just to make sure I grabbed it, you know? Little perks like that, I guess. Alright, so next up, we're about to fight a mini boss that a lot of people consider sort of a mainstay boss for some reason. This is Crocomire, and fun fact for those who don't already know at this point, Crocomire was planned at one point to be in Zero Mission, the remake for Metroid 1, which makes sense seeing as Zebes was both in Super Metroid and Metroid 1. But there actually happens to be like in-game battle sprites for the thing, and a lot of like fans really love Crocomire for some reason. I don't really know why. His design, I don't know, kind of just feels like a mishmash of like elements from both Kraid and Ridley. Like I kind of see the face of Ridley in him, and also like the body of Kraid on him. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Crocomire, you know, aside from like this little jump scare sequence, which I'm pretty sure scared the pants off of numerous people, um, probably stood out to them when considering like favorite sub bosses in Metroid, but I don't know. Besides that, I don't really get the whole appeal of like Crocomire because this all kind of just seems like happenstance that you could easily replicate with other bosses, I guess. But yeah, this is just more like awesome examples of just subtle storytelling narrative elements in Super Metroid, I feel. Again, it's just isolating that tension slash horror. Like, I definitely feel like Super Metroid kind of delves into the horror aspects a little bit with segues like that. But I think in some ways, Fusion kind of does it better. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that because, like, Super Metroid and Metroid as a whole is all about atmosphere. And if we're to add context into an element of the game that makes sense with what you're trying to imply through the atmosphere of, like, the world of Metroid itself, then I think, you know, going for something a bit on the horror side doesn't feel completely out of place. After all, Metroid does kind of pay homage to the Alien movie series. I never did bring mention of that in my Metroid 1 playthrough for some reason, didn't I? Yeah, Metroid as a whole is basically like a sci-fi video game tribute to the Alien series, right down from like the elements of storytelling. Like literally like both of the four chapters of like the main line of 2D Metroid games, 1, 2, uh Super and Fusion are both like retold elements of the Alien movies but in different narrative styles. And I think that's pretty cool. Right down to like even like the most subtle, well, not even subtle, but most obvious things like Ridley being named after Ridley Scott, who's like I believe the director of the Alien series. As much as people are going to probably kill me for saying this, though, aside from the recent Alien movie that came out this year in 2017, I've never really taken upon myself to like watch the Alien movies. I don't really know why. I've never really been much into horror, really. I guess like you could say I have a weak stomach for it. But aside from playing games like Resident Evil 2, horror's never really super been my thing, I guess. But I can see why it is for many other people. I don't know. I have a weak stomach for things with heavy imagery, I guess. Like even the shit in SpongeBob of all things kind of freaks me out. So Even to this day, standing here at 23 years old, it's like, yeah, I still don't entirely have the stomach for it, so, eh. But anywho, we got the grapple beam. In terms of high level play and speedrunning, probably the most useless, yet awesome utility at the same time. Because, like, for some reason, like, until Samus Returns came out and finally brought it back in the 2D games, the grapple beam is really kind of cool. Basically with it, you can kind of use it as a weak mini weapon if you're too lazy to switch to your main beam weapon, and basically use it to grapple onto these and use them as little lasso points. I think that's pretty cool if I had to be real. And I say it's useless because like bomb jumping pretty much nullifies the need for it if you're, you know, really good at it. But I'm not, and that's why we're using the grapple beam. So I'd much rather like get something I'm more confident in using than like spend like 30 minutes trying to sequence pace break past something I'm not even good at to begin with. So, and plus, I mean, even if this was like a sequence break let's play, I would still go for 100% anyway. And getting the grapple beam is part of that 100%. Though, now that I think about it, there isn't really much in the way of like minimalist runs for Super Metroid, is there? I never really hear much from the minimalist side run of things when it comes to Super Metroid. I don't even know why. Like, I know like 10% runs and 1% runs and Fusion and Zero Mission respectively are pretty popular, but I never hear anything about Super Metroid. And is there a specific reason for that? Is it because like you need a certain amount of energy takes before fighting Mother Brain to ensure that you get through to fight safely during a portion of the fight where you're forced to take damage? Is that it? Are people just not confident enough because they use Shine Spark so much? I mean, what's the deal? Why do I not hear much about the minimalist runs when it comes to Super Metroid? Is that too much to ask? But yeah, the grapple beam. It's a thing. And we're going to be using it here in the upcoming area. So, we're going to go ahead and head off to a save station right here and now. And then finally head off to the next area that has one of our main bosses we need to fight, because it's been since part 2 since we've fought any bosses in particular, because like, you know, I know 30 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but for a Metroid game it can be, darn it. So next time on Let's Play Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, we're gonna head off to the wreck ship. So thank you guys for watching and see you guys then.